to Washington now, where Congress appears to be closer to avoiding a government shutdown. The House is expected to vote on a spending bill today in hopes of avoiding tomorrow's shutdown deadline.
This comes after the Senate passed a measure last night. However, it does not include funding for President Trump's border wall. CBS News chief congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes is following the latest on Capitol Hill. Was it a late night for you, Nancy? Were you there with the senators?
I was, Anne-Marie, even though the outcome appeared to be pretty preordained because, after all, senators are just as eager as the rest of Americans to go ahead with their holiday plans, and in their case, that usually means getting out of town. So it was unanimous, this vote, to go ahead and fund the government through February 8th, and that was kind of the fallback position. This was nobody's first choice to only fund a quarter of the government for about a month and a half, but Republicans decided to go that route because they didn't get anywhere with Democrats when they tried first to get the $5 billion in border wall funding that the president was seeking, and then a $1 billion fallback, which Democrats rejected as well. And because Republicans needed their votes to get that money, they ended up saying, you know what, let's kick the can down the road. Let's keep the government open through the holidays so we don't have to furlough some 400,000 federal workers right before Christmas, and we'll come back and try to have this fight again in February.
So definitely sort of putting this on postponement, Nancy. Some House Republicans are frustrated with this spending bill because there's no money for disaster relief, and lawmakers from the conservative House Freedom Caucus are angry as well. What hurdles does this measure face, not only in the House, but also with President Trump?
Right. So in the House, things could get a little bit dicey today. And that is because, as you pointed out, Jerika, first of all, you've got this conservative wing of the party, Freedom Caucus, furious, that the wall funding idea was abandoned. They think that the White House and Republican leaders in the Senate gave up too easily. They think it's not going to get any easier to get that funding when Democrats take control of the House in January. And beyond that, they often have a problem with these spending bills, whether they include wall money or not, because they think that the government is spending too much on other domestic programs. And so you can't always count on their votes. At the same time, you've got about 30 or 40 Republican members of Congress who haven't been showing up for votes at all over the last week or two because they were either defeated in November, so they're leaving Congress, or they decided to retire. And, they don't have their offices anymore. They've had to give those up. A lot of these members sleep in their offices. Some of them are sort of just ready to be done with the place. And so Republicans are in this unusual situation when they really don't like to be in, where it's possible that they might have to get this over the finish line with more Democratic votes than Republican votes. That's something that the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, typically likes to avoid. And this is really his last major act as Speaker before he retires himself. So it's not the way that he wants to go out. And that's why you might see a little bit of back and forth, Republican leadership trying to find some way to bring these conservatives around before they actually hold the vote in the House. But the White House is indicating that the president is probably going to go ahead and sign this. And it's unlikely that the Republican leadership in the Senate and the House would be embracing it if they didn't think that the president was going to get behind it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I wondered about that because he's not getting his money, so I can't wait I can't wait to see what the tweets are to explain why he's accepting that, why it's fine for that to happen.
Well, he has been, sort of doing some damage control on the front end, and the White House line for a couple of days has been, well, we're going to find this money somewhere else. We're going to ask cabinet secretaries whether they can pony up the money and redirect it to use for building the wall. It's not quite clear that they have the authorization to do that, but that's what the White House is saying. And now a whole bunch of Trump supporters have started a GoFundMe page, and money is pouring into that thing. And they've raised more than $500,000 just this morning.
Wow.
Not clear exactly how they would get that money into the federal treasury, but a lot going on.
And there's also the tweet about Mexico is paying for the wall indirectly through the new North American trade agreement, and somehow the money will be diverted into border security. So a lot of options up there, clearly, for the president.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nancy, thank you so much.